Hello and welcome to this edition of Defacto Review, a weekly roundup of the biggest stories shaping Mongolia. Here with us tonight, commentator and economist Jargal Defacto, and I am Milena Mendes. We are live on Facebook at V Television, and we always love hearing your thoughts. So on Twitter, use hashtag #Jargal_Defacto. Coming up on the show tonight, Deputy Premier resigns with government reshuffle imminent. President's deadline to disclose offshore accounts set for September. ENGIE pivots to renewable energies in Mongolia. Mongolian wrestler takes international title in Paris. MPP trips up Premier. Deputy Prime Minister Yukhodol-Su has resigned as MPs have formally announced their petition for the resignation of cabinet members. Legislators have disclosed the petition signed by 30 lawmakers in the 76-member parliament for Prime Minister Jargal Erdenbet's resignation. The Prime Minister was rumored to be on the chopping block as Mongolian People's Party members met behind closed doors after M. Enkbold's stunning defeat in the July presidential elections. Horol-Su, who resigned in reaction to accusations of corruption inside the cabinet, is one of the presumed candidates to become the new party leader and replace the prime minister. Jargal, these rumors of a new prime minister have been going on for a while now. How long until we have all the situation resolved?
Well, at least they demanded extraordinary sessions of the parliament for next week. Most probably they will start, and they had to discuss these questions of resignation or of changing the cabinet because 30 parliament members, as you said, from 65 parliament members of the ruling party, Mongolian People's Party, and obviously it will be, these 30 members will be supported by the opposition and several other members of the own political party. So we have never seen that. Almost, 30 is almost close, 40% of the all seats in the cabinet, parliament demanding the sort of serious questions. So they have to discuss it. I don't know the result, but what I see is they will relieve several important issues that the Mongolian People's Party face today, like the really change of the cabinet, the reason why they want to change, a lot of reasonings are coming. But, from people's perspective, even they change it. So what is that for ordinary people, our economy? What happened was, since our democratic revolution in 1990, 27 years, we had seen 17 governments. 15 of them were prime minister, 2 were acting prime minister. Out of the 17, only 2 have completed their terms of 4 years. So if you divide it, on the average, Mongolian cabinet was of a length of only 19 months. 19 months is a short for major projects to be decided, to have a solution or to have final decision on any larger term projects. The people who suggesting to change cabinet, they say economy is not good, bringing concessions is a problem because it's a lot conflict of interests, projects, etc. But overall, the economy is growing for this first half of the year for 5% and 4% against the even zero growth by international agencies. So, but this growth is not because we Mongolians are good, our politicians are perfect. It is just because increase of oil, increase of coal, and copper prices,
right,
and their production and exportation. So it is another, I believe, it is another kind of a work of inside the palace revolt in a way. But instability in the government, of course, definitely is causing a change of moods of investors, Mongolian businesses. They're deferring from making a long-term decisions. So it's not good. But however, I see all this demand of changing the cabinet, I see the larger kind of collapse of the political system of Mongolia. Because Mongolian People's Party is the long-established, 90 years old, mostly whole-time ruling political party. And yet they are involved in such a corruption issues, like they were trying to sell high-ranking political offices, government offices for total 60 billion doriks. And this is one of the major cause why they want to resign the cabinet. But I see beyond that. Mongolian economic issues are a lot related to not being able to implement the large projects. And all our large economic projects like railways, power stations, hydropower stations, all together are always related with the political conflict of interests. So without, for example, we have a power station number 5, we talk about that needed power stations for Ulaanbaatar city for 20 years. Most funny thing is we 10 times laying the ground of the power station number 5 and still it is on the paper. Another thing is the water sanitation system of the city. Bad smell comes when you land at the airport. So still the many projects keep staying there. Why? Behind everything there is a corruption. Corruption is in Mongolia like diabetes. They first destroys inside, then it slowly goes, all the movement stops, then at the end it takes their life. In the Mongolian corruption today is taking completely our political life, political parties. And now it's coming, it's already there, but it's coming to the very high level, to the economic life. Then it may come to whole Mongolia itself. That's my worry. We have a lot of corruption cases which is appearing on media and disappearing because media is paid not to talk about that cases. For years, this sort of corruptions were not solved. Nobody was held responsible for any major corruptions in the country. So today, these political parties pay what they earned during all these years.
I have a question. In the last 2 governments, actually, the party leader took the job of the speakers instead of the prime minister. So are we certain that the next leader is actually going to be a prime minister?
Probably yes, because we don't expect another presidential election shortly. The previous speakers were always planning to run for the presidency. And you see the 3 powers, judiciary, executive, and the legislative powers, they are supposed to mutually balancing and mutually checking, which is not the case anymore in this country. That's why they are unable to combat corruptions inside of these 3 political parties. That's why we keep receiving more and more billionaires, as we say, from Mongolian government, not from the business. So that's a big concern. And the very fact that 30 parliament members are signing that document petition to resign the cabinet means there is a major fall or division happening inside of the
Right, because it represents a significant number of members.
And from the people who were very much supporting the speaker, the political head of the party, and also many of them were picked up by him to be parliament members, and now they are refusing him. So a lot of things is happening next week, and from next week we do expect, but whatever happens, hopefully Mongolia will win in terms of combating corruptions.
Right, and Jorgel, what do you think of the Deputy Prime Minister's resignation?
Very interesting case.
It is.
The Prime Minister Hurusuk, he's a first Deputy Prime Minister of Mongolia. He had resigned himself saying that he is not agree principally with many things what their political party does. But within few days, Anti-Corruption Agency of Mongolia are opening file for him for spying himself, for initiating that spying process of himself with the political purpose of becoming prime minister. And they regard it as they will regard by the related provisions in the law attempt to take over political power in the country, which is illegal. It's a very big criminal case. So we don't know what's going on in that regard with this just resigned deputy prime minister. But we know that depending on his case, we will see whether corruption is becoming growing or decreasing in the society. Very clear picture.
This is definitely a story we have to keep looking at. And moving on, offshore deadline approaches. Mongolian companies and citizens who have 2 weeks before the deadline set by President Khaltma Batulga, when he says those with undisclosed overseas accounts will be investigated. Batulga has promised to go after these so-called, quote, oligarchs, unquote. He says are hiding their bribes and avoiding Mongolian tax. The Independent Agency Against Corruption claims to know of 29 individuals and 35 companies that have not disclosed their overseas banking accounts. The president has promised that those individuals will face investigations if they fail to do so before the deadline. So my question here is this situation of offshore accounts as bad as the president says?
Well, first of all, just 29 individuals, 35 companies have offshore accounts. Question is, so what? If they are political officials, it's one issue. If there are non-political officials, and plus if they have paid taxes on those property, it's not a problem at all. But we don't know yet how many of these 29 individuals are politicians and how many of these 35 companies are related to them. So I think once our new president promised almost all as his first job, by September 10, Mongolian peoples are expecting him to speak out of these figures, how many of them are politicians. So this is what his expectations. But even he disclosed these people, I don't know how much it will go deeper into the court, because as we know, on practice, for the last 17 years almost, whatever the big deal is coming with the corruption, they slowly disappear. And I don't think this president is able to reveal all of them, because nothing is changed except this president. So all power is there, the same people. So let's see. It's another case where the Mongolian ordinary people are waiting for justice too. But again, it's nothing wrong for people to have a bank account abroad as soon as they have paid the taxes. Otherwise, the whole purpose of the state is also to protect private property of the people if it's earned by them honestly and in just way.
And let's say it is. Do you think the situation can actually turn into like a witch hunt?
Could be, depending on the purpose and who will be those
who will
those revealed having this foreign account. So depending on who are there, which figure, which faces, in Mongolia things are nothing institutional. It's always individual.
Great.
So let's see what's going on. A very interesting story to follow.
Let's move on. Engie pivots to renewables. So the French state-owned energy company Engie has announced plans for its first wind farm in Mongolia. ENGIE will build and operate the sanctioned wind farm in the Gobi Desert. This project will support the government's objective to evolve towards a greener economy and a better environment. ENGIE was leading development for power plant number 5, which was supposed to be its last coal project, but it has been at a standstill since the Mongolian People's Party took power from the Democrats last year. The ENGIE wind farm is the third privately financed farm in Mongolia. Do we already have details that can be shared about this project?
Yes, we have some interesting details. Not only ENGIE, there are several other. It's consortium who is financing this $120 million for this project. Mongolian partner is called Sainshant Wind Park. It's a limited company, and that company is creating all this fund with the help of all these partners. But the executive also, this is the third wind farm in the country in 3 IMACs. One is in Central IMAC, South Gobi second. The third is now East Gobi IMAC, 460 kilometers away from Ulaanbaatar city. And actually the contractor will be Chinese Machinery and Engineering Corporation, SMAC, which actually will implement it, and by the end of next year we will see that wind farm working. And you know, this wind farm, third time, financed by EBRD very actively also. Now NGI is involved, and gives me always thought why Mongolian private companies large projects only go, why the state-owned large projects don't go. Good example for thought is our new airport. New airport is actually the building, runway all built up by Japanese on the loan, soft loan, 580 million US dollar. Okay, that part is ready. Which is not ready is a road from Ulaanbaatar to the airport, which is financed again by Chinese soft loan, $150 million, and 30% of the work is to be made by Mongolians. Chinese part is almost, they go on time. Mongolians are staying way behind. So now question is, wherever Mongolian government is involved, all projects are led. Who is paying? Who is paying for the cost? For example, the new airport costs 500 million tugriks per month in summer and 1 billion tugriks per month in winter, because the power station is there in winter. They have already hired 150 staff, and they keep paying salary for the airport, which is not receiving single aircraft. So and it will go until to the end of next year, in most probably to 2019. So question is, how come that in such a bad manner, such a bad planning, the government is making decisions? So it's a big question, and nobody is held responsible for this delay. So for another year, this empty airport will stay there. And it's really giving a thought for Mongolian ordinary people, how come with this money, just spending every day, we could make a lot of buildings, or kindergartens, school buildings in Ulaanbaatar city. And by the way, we have a lot of schools in countryside without children, students, because they run away to Ulaanbaatar city. In Ulaanbaatar, we have a lot of students without school. So how long it will go, that's another challenge for ordinary Mongolians. So Mongolians now prefer rather to see kindergarten schools are made rather than the cabinets, one guy changes with another guy. Actually, these are the not very important issues for daily life. But somehow we give big attention, big deal to these changes of the cabinet.
And information is that this farm will have capacity to produce 55 megawatts and will provide enough for 130,000 people. So Jargal, my question is, what are Mongolians' goals for renewable energy? We have mentioned so many problems with companies that have the government related, so where do we stand on it?
We have joined Paris Agreement about carbon dioxide reduction, okay, reduction. And we have signed a contract, agreement that we will make 20% of our total energy from renewable energy sources by 2020 and 30% by 2030, which is very expensive for Mongolia as a country.
In such a short period of time.
And you know, a country like United States, the richest country in the world, is refusing that because they say it's impossible. But we say it's possible. In particular, because we signed the contract, there was another power stations, coal-fired power stations we needed in Tavan-Tolgoi, which can supply Oyu-Tolgoi, the copper mine, with power. And this Oyu-Tolgoi, the largest copper project in the country, also in the world, they are receiving electric power from China, and they pay around close to $300 million a year to China for power. And yet these power stations could be made, and that during all the 5 years payment, the cost will be recovered. But the whole concessions deal was stopped after Mongolia signed the Paris contract. So now the question is, what can we afford, what we cannot afford? Because this country is at the initial stage of its industrialization and development. And all developed countries made their initial development with coal by all means. So there is a dilemma. Because now if we want to develop in the way they suggest, it's going to be very expensive. But however, it's fact, we have signed the agreement and the power station project stopped, and so renewable energy, couple projects, and only 3. It's not that substantial actually, so let's see.
And do you think that eventually Mongolia can cut out the need of coal-fired energy completely, or are we still too far away from this?
I think we should not, even because it's now for a while most cost effective. And even more than that, now there are 5 or so projects where the brown coal to be used for producing energy, then supply to China. Several projects had started. We cannot stop them. So that's what the situation. And down the road, what else we can replace? On the wind, not enough. And it's expensive, relatively. So it's a big dilemma for Mongolian energy planning.
Right. Moving on to our last topic of the night in the sports. Wrestler wins World Championship in Paris. Mongolian wrestler P. Orkhan took the gold in the 2017 World Wrestling Championship in Paris. She won the women's under 63 kilogram contest at the event, which kicked off last Monday with a defeat against a Ukrainian competitor. Orkhan took her first title of note last year at the Golden Grand Prix after defeating Japan's Kaori Iko, who had a record of 156 consecutive wins.
Wow.
We all know wrestling is the biggest sport here in Mongolia. Jargal, what can we say about Mongolian wrestling getting more noticed worldwide?
Well, it was big for men in this country. But from only for a few years from now, from back, now we have a lot of female wrestlers. And this young lady, 24 years old, from Uburhangaimak, she was born there, and 24 years old now, who became our 5th world champion in freestyle wrestling. And she is the 3rd female world champion of Mongolia in freestyle. So a question is come, what happened? Now, why so many women? And it happened, interestingly, I should say, that President Ilbek made an initiative. Just after he became president 2nd time, Olympic champion who got gold medal will be rewarded at once 120 million Greeks at once, and then 4 million to 5 million Greeks every 4 million Greeks every month for whole life.
Wow.
And if you got second place or silver medal, 60 million Greeks at once, then 3 million Greeks per month for life. And the third place, 30 million Greeks at once, and every month 2 million Greeks for life. And the same, almost, little bit lower rank, a million less, with the World Championship. Everybody who is World Champion received the similar, a little bit less accordingly. So now question is, for parents now, get your child, in particular your daughter, to try to be Olympic champion or world champion, is the same as you send to the higher school or then the university to make education in. The income is questionable or very similar. So I think parents try on both avenues. So we may end up probably as many students as the world champions, in particular females in the country. I mean, this is just, by the way, a serious observation is from public. Maybe the prize should be, half should go for development of that type of sport in Mongolia, so that the sport goes not just one individual who is champion. So this or that considerations are now happening in the society after this championship. But anyway, we congratulate this young lady with a great victory, making Mongolia again famous on the world arena.
I have a last question for you on this topic. What makes Mongolian wrestlers so different from the rest of the world?
Indeed, because we are nomads, and we were warriors. And warriors to be required to be strong, fast, flexible, so all this. So that was the type of sports developed from very childhood for boys. Nowadays, as I said, for girls now. But in general, this sport is kind of individual sport. And because all this, our heritage and the way we lived, we're probably, I don't know, maybe 1/3 or half probably of our life we were spending on the horseback. So it makes you fit, it makes you strong, flexible, so agile, right?
Right.
And hopefully that is a part of that contribution of Mongolians being a particular sportsman.
Right. Well, we're getting ready to wrap up tonight's show. Jargal, do you have any last comments?
Well, we try to observe 4 events in the country around which we can talk, not only about that event, but beyond that event. So what is expected from point of ordinary people. So thank you very much for listening to us. And we will be on the website, jargaldefacto.com, from tomorrow. And we were live on Facebook, the television. Thank you very much.
I am Milena Mendes, and thank you for staying with us tonight. Have a good week. Bye-bye.
Bye.